When we come to Parshat Shemini and encounter its long list of kosher and non-kosher animals, birds, fish, and creeping things, it can feel technical, almost like a halachic catalog. But Shemini is not just giving us a menu. It is asking a deep question. What does it mean for a people redeemed from Egypt to live as a holy nation, even in the kitchen, even at the table? Over the generations, our sages have offered different lenses for understanding kashrut. Some look first at the body. Rashbam on Vayikra 11 and Rambam, Maimonides, in the Guide to the Perplexed, suggest that certain animals were prohibited because they were physically harmful. There's some intuitive sense to this. We know that pigs can transmit trichinosis, hares may carry tularemia, shellfish and other bottom feeders often pose serious health risks. Through that lens, Parshat Shemini becomes a kind of divine health code. God steering us away from foods that would damage us. But the Torah never says, do this because it's good for your health. Don Isaac Abarbanel points out that many poisonous plants are left entirely unmentioned. If health were the main concern, it would be strange to ignore those dangers. Rabbi Yitzchak Arama in Akedat Yitzchak adds that countless non-Jewish communities eat non-kosher animals and remain quite healthy. So while keeping kosher may bring certain health benefits, it seems clear that this is not the primary reason the Torah gives us. Other commentators shift from the physical to the moral and psychological. Ramban, Nachmanides, on that same Vayikra 11, and again Abarbanel, suggests that the Torah is wary of predatory animals because of their violent nature. The concern is not that their meat is poisonous, but that their character might, in some subtle way, imprint upon us. We internalize what we eat. Those who are called to holiness should not draw their physical life from creatures that live by aggression and bloodshed. This fits a noticeable pattern in Shemini. No land predator appears on the kosher list. We're authorized to eat animals that are generally passive grazers, that chew their cud and have split hooves. Yet this approach, too, does not explain everything. Some herbivores are still prohibited. And in the watery world, many predatory fish are permitted as long as they have fins and scales. So character and temperament explain part of the picture, but not all of it. They sensitize us to the way food shapes us, but they do not fully decode the system. A third approach, which speaks very strongly to Parshat Shemini, looks at the effect of kashrut on the person observing it. Ibn Ezra writes that these laws protect Israel from impurity and preserves our sanctity. The focus here is not on the nature of pigs and shellfish, but on the spiritual discipline created by constantly distinguishing between permitted and forbidden foods. Every act of eating becomes an act of discernment. Akedat Yitzchak and the Italian commentator Shadal develop this further. They understand the dietary laws as a training ground for obedience. We learn to accept God's will in the most ordinary arena of life. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, in the 19th century, emphasizes that kashrut elevates eating itself into worshiping God, divine service, avodat Hashem. The kitchen and dining room become extensions of the Mishkan. When we live with the categories of tahor and tameh, we are carrying the atmosphere of the sanctuary into our daily routines. The Torah's own language at the end of the kashrut section underscores this. After listing the creatures we may and may not eat, it concludes, "For I am the Lord your God. Sanctify yourselves and be holy, for I am holy. For I am the Lord who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall be holy, for I am holy." Holiness here is not an abstract ideal. It is tied directly to our food choices. Holiness in the Torah very often emerges through separation and distinction. Just as God separates light from darkness, sea from dry land, Shabbat from the weekdays, and Israel from the nations, So Israel learns to imitate God by separating between the clean and the unclean, between what may and may not be eaten. A contemporary teacher who weaves these threads together for our generation is Rabbi Mark Angel. Drawing on classical sources and modern scholarship, he speaks of an ethical system of kashrut. Building especially on the work of Professor Jacob Milgram, he notes that kashrut is part of a broader framework that governs how humans consume animals. In Bereshit, before the flood, humanity is commanded to be vegetarian. I have given you every seed-bearing plant and every tree with fruit. They shall be yours for food. Only after the flood is meat permitted, and even then with immediate restrictions. According to this view, the laws of kashrut, including those in Shemini, limit human domination over the animal world. We may eat meat, but not indiscriminately and not without conscience. Rabbi Angel highlights how the Torah's exclusion of predatory animals reinforces this ethical vision. Creatures that live by constant killing are not appropriate food for a people tasked with embodying justice and mercy. In this way, he shows how Ramban and Abarbanel's concern about moral influence fits into a larger moral map in which not all life is equally available for our consumption. Kashrut becomes a daily reminder that the animal on our plate was once a living being, and that our right to eat it is bounded, structured, and spiritually charged. He also stressed that different explanations of kashrut, health, psychology, obedience, ethics, should not be seen as mutually exclusive. Together, they teach that the laws of kashrut transform eating into an arena of religious meaning. They remind us that ideals alone are not enough. It is precisely the concrete practice, the details of Shemini's list, the checking of labels, the separation of milk and meat, that turns holiness from a word into a lifestyle, ties into this separation. So when we read Parshat Shemini and we hear the familiar refrain to distinguish between the impure and the pure, between the living creature that may be eaten and the living creature that may not be eaten, we are hearing more than a dietary code. We are hearing an invitation to shape our bodies, our characters, and our ethics through the seemingly simple act of choosing what to eat. On the most practical level, this means that for a Jew, eating is never just eating. Every bracha, every choice at a restaurant, every product we put into a shopping cart is an opportunity to say, I remember that I was brought up from Egypt. I remember that my life is not only mine, it is lived before God. I remember that my relationship with the animal world, with my own desires, and with my community is governed by a higher standard. Parshat Shemini comes to remind us that holiness is not confined to the Mishkan or the synagogue. It is a lifestyle. It extends into the rhythms of daily living, into the kitchen, into the lunchbox, into the late night snack. Through kashrut, as illuminated by Rashbam and Rambam, by Abarbanel, Ramban, Ibn Ezra, Akedat Yitzchak, Shadal, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, by Professor Milgram and Rabbi Mark Angel, the Torah teaches that even the food that sustains us can become a pathway to holiness. If we're willing to eat with awareness, with restraint, and with a sense of covenant. In these days when the life is driving us to strange and complicated thoughts, how do we know where our boundaries are? Where are we separating the good and the evil? How can we be sure that we are the people that we need to be? I wish us all introspection to find that place within yourself that you can find sincerity and separate what is necessary and what we need to give into. So wishing us all holiness.